Good to be here with you on this Friday. A lot to get to here on the show. We'll hear from Fred Gibson, former Ware County Gator, Georgia Bulldog, here on the show. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. Also, Mike Griffith of Dog Nation will join us coming up here on the show. We'll talk Georgia Vanderbilt this weekend. Obviously, a bigger look ahead to Arkansas coming up a week from Saturday. We'll get to our picks coming up here on the show as well. So plenty to get to as we roll on this Friday. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live as well, ESPNCoastal.com, and live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So really no way you can't see the show today wherever you may be. But huge games this weekend in college football, certainly in the SEC, a couple of big ones, Texas A&M and Arkansas, Florida and Tennessee, kind of a renewal of that rivalry potentially if Tennessee can make it interesting. But you start right there in the SEC, and a big one in the West. Texas A&M loses this one, fellas, and it is all of a sudden Alabama and who exactly?
I think there's a lot of pressure on Texas A&M entering this game, and this is a really compelling matchup. I wrote my Game of the Week preview on southernpigskin.com on this game, and I think there's NFL players all over the field. Arkansas is better than a lot of people projected back in the summer. They looked really good against Georgia Southern last week. But I think this matchup is compelling because of the reason you mentioned, Kevin. If Texas A&M were to lose this game, and Jimbo Fisher, one of the top coaches in the country, expectations at an all-time high, at least since A&M's been in the SEC, number 5 in the country last year. If they lose this game, you're now in the standings looking up at Alabama, at Arkansas. You still got Auburn. You still got Ole Miss. You still have LSU. I mean, what could a loss mean for Texas A&M in this game? And look, the atmosphere is going to be great. It's in AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Jerry Jones, owner of the Cowboys, was a co-captain on the 1964 Arkansas national championship team. So, he's rooting for the Razorbacks big there. But I think it's kind of a gut check game for Texas A&M. You've been talked about as a top 5 team, a top 10 team. You were kind of sluggish in week 1 against Kent State. It didn't look great against Colorado at all. And then last week, I thought you had a better performance. They shut out New Mexico. And guys, remember, New Mexico's quarterback is former Kentucky quarterback Terry Wilson, and Texas A&M was able to shut them out. So if you go off of the total points scored, I know teams like Georgia, you had, a pick 6, but if you go off the total points scored, Texas A&M has the number 1 scoring defense in college football. That said, they are in the 80s in rush defense. So, Ben, that's where I'm looking. I wonder, can Arkansas line up, run the football? KJ Jefferson can obviously throw it, but he can run it as well. I'm watching that matchup of the Arkansas offensive line and the Texas A&M defensive line on Saturday in Arlington.
Could be a dangerous game for Texas A&M, BJ. When you look at everything that they're up against. I mean, Haynes King is already out. I don't know if he's out for the season, but I do know he will not be playing. You talk about an Arkansas team that already has a big win against Texas. So obviously with them, they already got the biggest brand. They beat the biggest brand in the state of Texas. Now you're talking about a Texas A&M team that Jimbo Fisher writing a lot of checks in the preseason. I already talking trash to old St. Nick, with Alabama. But I just think for me, Traylon Burks, BJ. I mean, you talk about arguably what? The best receiver in the SEC. You talk about what KJ Jefferson brings to the table. This Texas A&M team, they're going to be in for a lot because what they're going up against this week is balance. You got a team that can beat you through the air. You got a team that wants to be balanced running the football. And I think that we don't talk enough about what Arkansas does. We can't be – no one expects Arkansas to beat, maybe Alabama or maybe an Auburn. But everybody else is free game. Ole Miss, it could go anyway. Obviously, you got Texas A&M this weekend, but I think because you're on a neutral site, and when you think about Sam Pittman and what he's doing, he's what already in it, second year, he's already got these guys believing in what he's doing. So I think for me, this is going to be a scarier game for Texas A&M because I don't know who's Texas A&M played up to this point, but I know it was not about nobody to the caliber of Arkansas, and Arkansas already has a Texas win on their resume. So yeah, it could be a scary game, but anytime you got a neutral site that doesn't benefit either team, I would always sway to the underdog. And right now, that is Texas. That is Arkansas, which could be a long day, Kevin. For them Texas A&M boys.
Well, and Kevin, I do want to add this real quick about Arkansas, just because I think a lot of people have kind of a misnomer about Arkansas. I've read some stories this week about they're exceeding expectations, and they're playing above the line and they're playing above themselves. I don't know about that. This is a very talented team. I mean, you guys have both talked about Treylon Burks. He's probably a top 5 receiver in college football. He had 127 yards against Georgia Southern last Saturday on 3 catches. That's what he does. He gets it and goes. And then on defense, they not only have the leading tackler in the SEC, they have the second leading tackler in the SEC, and they have 3 of the top 10. So, Kevin, I think some of this talk about, Arkansas is playing above themselves and they're going to come back down to reality, I think that's not giving the Razorbacks enough credit. This is a really talented team.
Yeah, big test for Arkansas and Texas A&M this weekend. Of course, you got Florida and Tennessee in the East. Do you expect BJ and Ben there to be in the Alabama hangover here? I mean, and is that a real thing? Is that, I know Ben has talked week to week, but last week you were playing the number 1 team in the country. This week you're playing a team that on paper is a rival, but has beaten you 1 time in a decade and a half. Is there an Alabama hangover for Florida this week?
I don't think it's an Alabama hangover, but I will give Tennessee this much credit. Okay, Florida understands that Georgia is their barometer because they're right now they're the best team in the East. For Tennessee, for Florida, Georgia is their barometer. I'm sorry, but you talk about a Tennessee team, as you mentioned, Kevin, haven't had a lot of success as of late against the Gators. If you're at Tennessee, this is the game you circle on the calendar when you're saying, look, we're going to see what we are as a program. I don't care if we got a new head coach. I don't care if we got, our new players. I don't care if we lost a bunch of guys to the transfer portal. We measure our team on the best team in our conference. What is the best team in your conference is Georgia. But the best team that you've had a problem with dealing with that's had them. I think Florida over Tennessee is the longest streak right now in college football for one team over another. It used to be Florida and Kentucky. Well, Kentucky got rid of that, obviously, when they won a couple of years ago. So for me, I don't think it's going to be an Alabama hangover. I think that Florida understands that, look, utilize that crowd, utilize the fact that Anthony Richardson is going to be playing this week. But can Emory Jones take the next step? Because each week it's about him. The defense, you already know what to expect from them. Florida has, the second best running attack in the country right now. I think if you're at Tennessee, you know what you have to do. But I know it's crazy. You take on the traditions, the good or bad of the team you play for, but you can start setting new traditions. Because I go back to when Kentucky beat Florida. And Josh Allen and those guys, B.J. Bennett Jr., every time they talk about Florida, they say, we beat them. It doesn't matter how many times they beat us. We the team that stopped the streak. So I do think Tennessee is a dangerous team because nobody expects them to do much. But, Coach Heupel, he coming in saying, look, I understand that I'm new to this rivalry. I understand what's going on with Florida and Tennessee. But my legacy starts on Saturday. I have nothing to do with what happened before I got here.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts here. I might disagree with you a little bit, Ben. I think there might be just a little bit of I don't know if letdown is the right word, but just kind of a recovery from the Alabama game where, to Kevin's point, so much build up, so much hype, such incredible effort. I think Philip Fulmer called it courageous when he was talking about Florida coming back. That takes a little bit out of you when you come back from a significant deficit against a team like Alabama, and then it's kind of take a deep breath. All right, get focused on the rest of the season. And obviously the focus is going to be there. This is a very well-coached team. This is a talented team, but I think it's only natural. And I think Tennessee does present a little bit of a matchup difference in that they're going to try to run 90, 95 plays on you. Yep. And I think Hendon Hooker's given that offense a little bit more stability and consistency. So I expect this to be close, but I also want to say this, and it's a carryover and a parallel from Florida, Alabama, where for a lot of people, the reaction to that game was, my gosh, Alabama only beat Florida by 2. We've got to stop doing that. And what I think we're going to see this weekend, I may be wrong, Florida may win this by 4 touchdowns, but I think you're going to see Florida win a close game, maybe, by 2 scores at the end. And then you're going to have people say, see, Florida only beat. And that is so wrong. Ben, you've taught me that football is a week-to-week. Every week is a new chapter in a book. So what happened the week before, you move on. And if you win, you win. And if you lose, you lose. So I don't want people to be critical of Florida, who has earned the right to be called one of the best teams in the country, if they, quote, only win this game by 10 or 14 points. But I do think, Kevin, it's going to be a little closer because of kind of the challenges that Tennessee might present.
Yeah, again, a great, I think one that you always look forward to in the SEC, even though, as you said, it has been one-sided here for basically the last decade, and that really last 20 years or so. I think Tennessee's only won 5 of 22 in this series. So that is very one-sided at the end of the day, but what a big signature win that would be in year number 1 if Josh Heupel's able to go there and do that in the Swamp as well. A couple of the big games quickly. Clemson has not looked good offensively. Defensively looked very good. Offensively not looked good. They're on the road at NC State. BJ, this seems like one, again, where if Clemson is not careful, they can get got by the Wolfpack.
This is a tough game to figure out because if you go back to the summer, and I don't want to, already start changing my opinions a couple of weeks into the season, but I think I said, a couple of times, keep an eye on this game. NC State with Devin Leary and Bam Knight and Jakeem Harris having a great season. Isaiah Moore, Peyton Wilson defensively, and you're talking about playing in Raleigh, one of the tougher places to play in the ACC. I thought this was going to be close, but the fact that Clemson has looked so out of sync the first couple of weeks makes me wonder if they're going to have that breakout game now that there's a little bit of pressure, but the opponent isn't quite up to Georgia's level, right? Where you got humbled a little bit by Georgia. You beat South Carolina State handily, and then against Georgia Tech, that was almost an upset. That was right there. And now you're playing a game where there is that pressure, there is that kind of national spotlight, but you're not running into a Georgia. I think NC State's a good team, but probably not a great team. A part of me thinks Clemson gets right this weekend. And I don't know that that's as much me not crediting NC State as it is surely Clemson's got to be better than this. I mean, the correction has to be coming. Guys, we talked about this. Clemson is last in the ACC in offense by a wide margin. Like, not Florida State, not Georgia Tech, not Virginia, not Duke, not Boston. Clemson is last by a wide margin. So, Ben, I don't have a great feel for this, but a part of me kind of thinks Clemson is going to get right.
BJ, that might be the fact that we've got that recency bias when it comes to Clemson, because we think that no matter who's under center, no matter who they replace, they're going to be fine. Well, maybe that's not the case this year, because you know what's happening when we talk about the gap, right? We always talk about the gap in the ACC. You know what other teams are doing while Clemson is still good? They're getting better. Now, they're not on Clemson level, so we thought. We thought that Georgia defense exposed something. No, guess who else exposed Clemson? Georgia Tech. Because while Clemson is supposed to be, they're the gold standard in the ACC, other teams, once again, they play football in NC State too. They play football in Atlanta too. So, BJ, you looking for a get-right game. Is DJ, you going to just turn into somebody different? Is this offense going to just – they got guys that were starters transferring to schools. They got guys that were starters that's getting hurt. Maybe NC State, maybe this is a get-right game for NC State to be like, look, we understand that Clemson is the gold standard, but Clemson can be beat. They just haven't been beat in the ACC as of late. Maybe this is a closer game than we think, because this is a fourth quarter game. I would go with NC State if they keep it in, if they stay in this thing for 4 quarters. Because if you're looking at Clemson offense right now, they don't scare anybody, even if DJU is the future.
And we'll get to our picks coming up later in the show. When we come back, we will talk Georgia. Georgia's got Vanderbilt coming up this weekend. I don't think anybody's expecting that to be a close, hard-fought contest, but there are some interesting things to watch for this ball game with Georgia, with Arkansas sitting out there on the horizon. We'll hear from Mike Griffith, Dog Nation, when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Back to 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Georgia and Vanderbilt in Nashville this week. And joining us here from Dog Nation, Mike Griffith steps in here on 3 and Out. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing great, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. And again, I know most people aren't expecting Vanderbilt to be much of a challenge here, but it looks like Georgia potentially hopeful some guys that haven't played football much at all here in 2021 might get a chance to do so here on Saturday. What's the latest you can tell us about some guys like Darnell Washington and others?
Yeah, Kirby said he didn't rule them out. This was their original target date for return. You talk about Darnell Washington and Tyke Smith, the defensive back. It'd be nice to see those guys get a couple snaps, get warmed up. You'd hate for their first action to be in a game like Arkansas. I anticipate it'll be a closer game in Sanford Stadium. But we don't know for sure if they're going to go. I mean, obviously, Georgia's fine whether they go or not. I think we want to see more from Kamari Lassiter, cornerback. When we talk about Georgia really needing to kind of address some needs and tighten some things up before we start to get into the meat of the schedule, that cornerback position opposite of Darian Kendrick, we have to wonder. Amir Speed and Keely Ringo have had some moments this season when they really haven't looked up to par in terms of championship standards. And not to say that they can and won't improve. Lassiter is another player, an incoming freshman with a lot of talent that Kirby's been high on. I wonder how much of him might we see this week.
Mike, beyond just winning the game, obviously, what specific things do you think Kirby Smart and his staff are looking for against Vanderbilt?
Well, I think Kirby and Georgia really want to get comfortable running the ball. There's been some inconsistency there, hot and cold, as Kirby likes to say. And that's an area that really needs to be shored up. For Georgia to be at their best, they've got to be able to run the ball effectively. And, it's what sets up play action. It's what keeps you, comfortable and down in distance and short yardage situations. So to me, that's an area that I think they really need to focus on, really establishing that ground game so that they can open up to play action.
I mean, Mike, obviously it's working right now, but do they want to be more like let the run open up for the pass? I know that JT Daniels got the big time arm, and I think the way he's spreading the football around kind of makes that offense more dangerous because you don't have one guy to key on. But as obviously it goes from hotter to colder, and you want to be able to get those backs more. Do they kind of want to go more run heavy? They kind of even open up more for the passing game.
Well, they want to be able to do both, right? The defense will dictate what you do by how many men they have in the box. And when a defense is dropping 8, you want to be able to put the throttle down and hammer them on the ground. And when they're loading the box, you want to be able to throw it deep. And, you want to be able to run effectively enough on first down that the defense doesn't really know what to expect from the offense. So you stay out of the change. It's 2nd and 5 now. It's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3. And that's the play caller's delight. When you're able to keep the defense guessing and on their heels and you stay ahead of the chains, where you can run or pass effectively, it makes it that much harder for them to devise a scheme to stop you.
Mike Griffith joining us here on 3 and Out. And Mike, you look at this Georgia defense has gotten a lot of notoriety for what they've done here early in the season, rightfully so. What kind of offenses have they faced yet to kind of show where they're at? Clemson, as you saw what they did against Georgia Tech last week offensively, do you feel like Clemson was that dynamic offense that maybe we thought they were going to be? And where do you think this Georgia defense is, again, 3 games in? Have they seen a team that is really competent offensively at this point?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I don't think we can say, I think maybe some teams are competent, but I don't know that they've faced anybody dynamic enough that I would want to judge them at this stage. Outside the front 7. The front 7's legit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's just a fantastic group of guys there that are lining up on defense there in that front 7. But secondary is where they have been susceptible. We pointed out that South Carolina was able to strike deep with 4 passes of 35 yards or longer. And you wonder now, if that's going to be the recipe is, hey, you've got to set Georgia up and kind of take your shots where you can. And I think that's what Vanderbilt's planning to do this week. And then they'll face an Arkansas team, and it'll be very interesting to see how Arkansas fares against Texas A&M on Saturday in Arlington, Texas.
Assuming this game goes as we expect and Georgia has a multi-score lead very early, do you think later in this game we'll see Stetson Bennett and Carson Beck potentially?
Well, Kirby says it has to do with how these teams practice. So, I'll take him at his word. And, I'm not inside of those practices, but I would imagine that, there may be an opportunity to put some backups in, depending on the score and if Kirby's seen what he wants to see out of the starting offense. But, I don't think that the backup quarterback is a big concern for Georgia so much as the run game and getting that offensive line settled and maybe seeing some of those younger offensive linemen in there. I know that's not as sexy or as obvious as seeing the backup quarterback trot in, but when those big uglies come in, pay attention because Georgia really still searching for the right combination up front.
I mean, even speaking of that offensive line, what is Georgia's best starting five? As you mentioned, a lot of young guys, a lot of guys trying to kind of play out of position. But who is their best starting five in your estimation?
Yeah, it's kind of a trick question. With JT under center, I think he helps Cedric Van Pran quite a bit, and I think that makes Van Pran the best center. Now, I don't know what to say about Warren Erickson at right guard. Warren is a guy that can play multiple positions on the offensive line. He started out as the starting center before he broke his hand, you'll remember. But, from everything Kirby's saying, Jamari Salyer is having a great year at left tackle. And, we all thought Broderick Jones, the 5-star, would edge his way in there, but it hasn't happened yet, at least not as a starter. That's kind of something to keep your eyes peeled for. When does Broderick Jones hit that point, where he's assignment sound and you feel like you can trust him at left tackle enough to move Jamari inside the guard? And then who goes out? Is it Erickson or is it Schaefer? Schaefer as a senior hasn't exactly had the best years. Some motion penalties, a holding penalty. It's been a disappointing year for Justin Schaefer, the senior left guard.
Mike Griffith, Dog Nation, joining us here on 3 and Out. And obviously it works this week against Vanderbilt. Kirby Smart saying, look, we don't measure ourselves against the opponents. We measure ourselves against ourselves. I mean, what if you dive into that, what do you think is his meaning behind that, especially obviously when you're playing a team like Vanderbilt, but as an overall philosophy?
Well, you got to play up to a certain standard. Nick Saban talked about it. Alabama had more than half their offense in the first quarter and, didn't play up to their standard the rest of the game. And, you got to have that mentality that regardless of who you play, they're going to get your best. You don't let down just because the other opponent maybe not as talented or doesn't push you as much physically. You have to play up to a championship standard every time you take the field. That's your responsibility, not just to the team. It's your responsibility to yourself. Yeah, every day you guys sit behind the mic. You guys got to bring it, right? You don't say to yourself, well, it's a little rainy outside. We all have that responsibility, as Nick Saban says, that self-standard of excellence. And different people set the bar in different places. I can assure you Georgia football is setting that bar very high.
Mike, what can you tell us about Jalen Kimber and his knee injury?
Yeah, Jalen is unfortunately out for the year. Season-ending knee surgery this morning. Season-ending shoulder surgery this morning. A guy that was projected to start on the corner. A guy that I think is going to be missed. And he didn't really get a lot of run yet this year. It's a position where Georgia's already lacking bodies. Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell, first and second round draft picks. DJ Daniel, very unfortunate. DJ didn't stick around for another year. That was a guy that started at corner in 2019. And, I think he'd be starting right now if he was still a Georgia Bulldog. But, something happened where, he didn't want to come back for another year and tried his hand at free agency when the Jaguars got cut. Just a talented player that you hope resurfaces somewhere. But, back to the Georgia side, so you got that NFL attrition, Mark Webb and Richard LeCounte also. There's 5 DBs right there. And then you had 2 other guys transfer. Major Burns is starting at LSU and Tyreek Stevenson starting in Miami. So, you lose 7 guys. 7 SEC starters out of your defensive backfield, and here's what you got left.
And because of the depth of the front seven, even those guys that come in, backing up those guys, because they're so good, both first team, second team, maybe even third team, how much less pressure do they put on those guys on the back end because you got to deal with those guys up front?
Yeah, they do. They put they put the pressure up there, but still South Carolina found a way to complete 4 passes over 35 yards. I mean, those are game-changing plays that get you beat against a better opponent. And, South Carolina, and listen, I thought Luke Doty played really well. I think a lot of Luke Doty. I don't know why I've got this, and maybe it's a sucker bet, but for whatever reason, I think Gamecocks are going to beat Kentucky at home under the lights in Columbia. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kentucky goes in there and beats them like a drum like they did last year. But I really liked what I saw from Luke Doty. I thought those Gamecocks brought a lot of fight for all 4 quarters. But still, that's not a team that you expect to be exploiting your secondary. And, you hit those big passes, That's tough. And so I do think that there is a margin for error because of that front four. But when we're talking about trying to win a national championship, you better bring your A game. And we've seen it with Georgia before. They've been so close to getting by Alabama, and weren't able to do it. And even Florida. Hey, Florida outplayed Alabama, but you know what? Alabama didn't turn the ball over. And Alabama's coach had them prepared. They took a 21-3 lead coming out of the tunnel in the first quarter because Dan Mullen didn't have the Gators prepared. Okay? The Gators were the better team. You can look at the numbers. You can look at the last 3 quarters. But it was Alabama that came in dialed in. It was Alabama that didn't have any turnovers and didn't beat themselves. And so if you're Georgia, you've got to know that that's the team you're going to face. A team that's not going to beat themselves, a team that's going to be dialed in, and a team that's going to find a way to exploit your weakness. So you better hope those corners get dialed in. I don't care how good your front seven is. Bryce Young is a guy that can buy time, and Bama's got some receivers that can exploit you. So it's up to Georgia to get themselves championship ready on the back end.
Mike Griffith, Dog Nation, our guest here on 3 and Out. Mike, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mike Griffith joining us here on 3 and Out. Is Georgia and Vanderbilt this Saturday in Nashville, and then Arkansas rolls into Athens. Could be a huge game if the Razorbacks are able to bump off Texas A&M. We'll come back with more 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're with us. We'll look at the SEC games coming up in just a little bit, but the ACC weekend here, BJ and Ben. Obviously, you have Clemson and NC State. We talked about that a little bit in the open. You have Georgia Tech hosting North Carolina, sort of. They're at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They're the home team. So you get North Carolina coming into town, number 21 ranked. Tar Heels, Georgia Tech coming off a near get of Clemson last week. And again, do you have positive momentum for Georgia Tech, or do you have it in the other direction? We're talking about Florida. Is there a Alabama hangover? Is there a Clemson hangover for Georgia Tech where it's like, hey, you put forth a lot of effort to try to win that game, and now a dynamic offense comes in that's really going to push you the full length, sideways, and up and down, north and south on the football field?
Tell me if you guys think this is fair or if this is wrong. I'm kind of talking it out, but when you compare Georgia Tech's near upset of Clemson and Florida's near upset of Alabama, I think, a couple of factors. Obviously, Florida was number 11 in the country entering that game. The game was in the swamp. I think Florida can absolutely take some positives away from that game, but I think at the end of the day, they feel like they had a chance and they lost. I think for Georgia Tech playing at Clemson, and I'm talking about, the totality of kind of what people expected, not inside that locker room. But for Georgia Tech, I don't know that there was much talk around the country, even of the Yellow Jackets playing Clemson close in Death Valley. So even though there are no moral victories, I think Georgia Tech can take a lot of positive momentum away from that. I mean, you went up against the other modern day dynasty as an unranked team and a team that a lot of people kind of turned the page on after you lost to Northern Illinois. And you had Clemson quite literally on the ropes, like right there at the 1 yard line, offensively and defensively. So I think Georgia Tech enters this game with North Carolina with momentum, with positive momentum. And I think this is fascinating because, Kevin, you mentioned the offense. Yeah, they're going to Josh Downs and Ty Chandler, obviously Sam Howell, but they didn't look good against Virginia Tech. In their conference game, against Virginia Tech, their opener, they didn't look good. Then against Virginia, they scored 50-plus points, but offensively, they were great. Defensively, they were not. So I kind of don't know what to expect from North Carolina, and I think Georgia Tech should enter this game with more confidence.
Yeah, what I don't understand is, BJ, is the fact that we need to let go of preseason hype. We need to let go of what we thought was going to happen. Virginia Tech showed us week 1 of the season. Maybe this isn't. If we're talking about replacing things outside of what LSU had to replace in 2020, is anybody replacing? And obviously, what Alabama's replacing with, Najee Harris and Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. Nobody's replacing more than North Carolina. You replace the 2,000-yard backs and 2,000-yard receivers. Now, Sam Howell is a good player. He has a so-so offensive line. Georgia Tech didn't lose to Clemson because Clemson was better team that day. Georgia Tech lost to Clemson because they didn't thought they would be in the game at that point in the game. Because I'm telling you, going into the game with a belief system that, look, we're just as good as them. It can't just be a talking point. It can't just be something where we feel as though we can play with anybody in the country. Georgia Tech almost beat Clemson. And the reason why they didn't beat Clemson is because they tried to beat them with a shovel pass. You're not going to beat Clemson with a shovel pass because give Venables a lot of credit. But you talk about this Georgia Tech team now. We're talking about hangovers. Can I take the momentum from last week and bring it into this week? Yes, Georgia Tech is playing, Mercedes-Benz, to kind of taking away a home game. But if you're North Carolina, you should be nervous. If two things Georgia Tech has, they have a solid running game when they feature it, and they got DBs that can match up with anybody. So I do think Georgia Tech is going to give UNC some problems because people think that because Sam Howell is going to be a potential top 10, top 5 pick, that thinks they can just march out there and beat anybody. If Georgia Tech stays the course, they come in here with a similar game plan. Keep pressure on UNC. Mr. Sam Howell will throw the ball to the other team. So, BJ, I just think it's momentum. I think it's confidence, and I think it's buying in. And unfortunately, this isn't the same Clemson that we've grown to know and love. We need to get maybe Clemson isn't as good, and maybe Georgia Tech is a team who understands that while they might have one of the hardest schedules in the country, they can go ahead and put one in the L column if they can keep pressure on them Tar Heels this weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be certainly one to watch on Saturday night. A couple more interesting ones that I think for just various reasons will not get talked about a lot, but an interesting matchup, ACC v. SEC, Missouri and Boston College. Kind of one you just don't see that scheduled a whole lot, but two teams that are looking to kind of establish themselves in the middle of the conferences that they're in. Boston College off to a 3-0 start. Mizzou at 2-1. This will be a big non-conference win for both of these teams if they can get it.
Fascinating game. I agree with you. And I think if Boston College had Phil Dracovic completely healthy, this would probably be an even more interesting game. That's their starting quarterback. But yeah, Boston College is still a talented team, and they get overlooked sometimes in the ACC. They're way up there and, don't have kind of the, the name brand that some of the other teams have, but quietly they're a very consistent program. Jeff Hafley last year came in after being the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, did a really nice job. And even without Dracovic, you're talking about Zay Flowers as an All-American candidate at wide receiver, Zion Johnson, Alec Lindstrom, Chris Lindstrom's brother along the offensive line. This is a good team, a balanced team, and their backup quarterback, Dennis Grosel, has played. So he's been a starter. This is a big test for Missouri. And Kevin, going back to kind of the SEC-ACC thing, man, could the ACC use a win like this? Given what you've seen with Florida State being terrible, with Georgia Tech's loss to Northern Illinois, with, Clemson not looking great, getting shut out by Georgia, Miami getting blown out, obviously, by Alabama and Michigan State. NC State, not even close against Mississippi State. I think you could really use an SEC win here, and Boston College just may be the team to give it to you. They're a good team.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you talk about two teams that are very, very similar as far as like what they're always fighting for in their respective conferences, it's always fighting for respectability and getting to that coveted 6 wins, and how many games past 6 can they get to? Missouri is a very, very fascinating team because of where they geographically located. You're not going to get the same fanfare. And Missouri, outside of certain teams they play, is good enough to beat anybody. But so is Boston College. So this is going to come down to a battle of wills. This is going to come down to who can go out there and beat themselves. BJ, something I told you all about too, outside of being a different week. This comes who can look more like themselves and who is good at improvising. If they take away what we naturally do, are we good at improvising? But these type of games end up being more intriguing than we give it credit for. It's not the sexy game. It ain't Georgia Tech, North Carolina. I get it. It ain't Tennessee, Florida. I get it. But we look, the next thing you know, we like, hey, man, you might want to turn over to Boston College and Missouri boys over there getting it in. But I do think Boston College needs this more than Mizzou because I think right now with Clemson not kind of being the ACC, front runner that we've grown in, who's going to be that next team? And I think Boston College got good a chances in, and we'll see come this weekend. Should be a good test on both sides.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that think maybe Boston College right now might be that team in the Atlantic to be a solid number 2, given the way things are going. And to that end, BJ, we got a couple minutes here. One, trying to avoid, I guess, more history, and not in the good way, and that's Florida State and Louisville. And Louisville off to a 2-1 start, but Florida State, they haven't gone 0-3 since the 70s. I don't even want to know how far you got to go back to see when they went 0-4 last. And they are trying, hoping, praying that they don't go 0-4 this week at home against Louisville.
Yeah, 0-4 would be pre-Bobby Bowden. So you're talking about before Bobby Bowden at Florida State. Man, it's a hard team to kind of get a feel for. The Notre Dame game was fun. Everybody was optimistic, even in a losing effort. And then the Jacksonville State game was just stunning. Not necessarily only that you lost, but how you lost. And then, a lot of people said, okay, surely they'll bounce back against Wake Forest. And they were blown out. Florida State was blown out by Wake Forest. It might have only been 35-14, which is still a 21-point victory. But Wake Forest kind of put it on cruise control and said, hey, we're going to keep it where it is in the fourth quarter. They could have scored 2 more touchdowns, it seemed like, watching it. And Ben, I don't know. We know Mackenzie Milton has been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's had a really hard time getting the ball downfield. He had 4 turnovers in Winston-Salem. Florida State actually has the nation's sack leader in Jermaine Johnson, the Georgia transfer, but that hadn't been quite enough defensively. They've been able to run the football a little bit with Ja'Shawn Corbin, the Texas A&M transfer, but the passing game just has not been there. Turnovers, mistakes, penalties. I don't know. I do know this. Florida State better find a way to have some big plays because Malik Cunningham's going to have big plays. Louisville's got some momentum after beating Central Florida. I think Scott Satterfield has turned things around there a little bit. I love Cunningham. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But, Ben, man, when I watch Florida State, I don't know. I just don't know.
I just think at the end of the day, Florida State going to have to take a hard look in the mirror, and they're going to have to be able to really, really like what's looking back at them because identity crisis happens sometime in football, and sometimes, BJ, you might be a lot of things, but you are definitely what your records say you are, and they're going to have to get back to their winning ways sooner rather than later because Mr. Norvell, that seat ain't even hot no more. I don't even think you have a seat to sit on at this point.
I think if he loses to Louisville, you might go just get a can of gasoline and dump it on that seat. I mean, it could be crazy. And again, we've already seen the calls. Go get Dion there from folks in Florida State. And I'm sure those will only get louder if Mike Norvell loses a game like this on Saturday afternoon. We got more to come here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. College football coming up tomorrow. Some great high school football games out there this evening, including one we'll have coming up here in just a little bit. Benedictine and Ware County, two great quarterbacks. If you haven't made your plans to check that out, do it. Or listen to us on ESPN Radio Savannah, AM 1400, FM 104.3, ESPNCoastal.com. We'll also have it on the video side of things as well at ESPNCoastal.com. And you'll see two of the state's best quarterbacks, BJ and Ben, Holden Gerner at BC and Thomas Castellanos at Ware County, and two guys that do it differently. Holden Gerner, big arm, able to push the ball downfield, committed to Auburn. Thomas Castellanos, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks you're going to find committed to Central Florida. Should be an unbelievable matchup of quarterbacks tonight.
Really excited. I think it's one of the best games you're going to see all season long in the state of Georgia. And two powers, as you said, two quarterbacks that are not only great high school football players, but big time recruits as well. And, really proud of the work that you and Christian and PJ do with our high school football, our high school sports coverage, and to have the mega cast tonight with you, Christian, and PJ. You got it on the radio, you got it digitally, you can watch it. This is big time. I'm really excited and going to check out both broadcasts. And I think, Kevin, Ben, when you have quarterbacks like this, is the expectation kind of a more high scoring, big play type game? Or could this be one of those games where the defenses, sometimes when you hype up an offensive game, it's the defenses that show up. What are you expecting tonight?
Christian was just showing me some highlights of the young man from Ware County. Let me tell you something. Look, I know that Benedictine play good football, but if you had a chance to see didn't UCF play Auburn in the Peach Bowl? Didn't they play him in the Peach Bowl? Well, BJ, you might want to go back to that game. And I know UCF won. I'm not saying Ware County gonna come out the winner today, but if you play defense for Benedictine, boy, you better get your Gatorade. Because that young man at Ware County, that young man is trouble. But when you talk about why you love high school football, you got two guys that's already committed to their respective schools, and I think the kid at Ware County, he's going to UCF not because he's not good enough to go to bigger schools. He's not the biggest kid you ever seen. I think like 5'10", 5'11", but it should be fireworks. So that's what you want, though. The goal is always the same in any style of football. Whoever has a better quarterback got a better chance of winning, but whoever has the better dual threat in high school, that gives you an even higher chance of winning. So I think it should be a good one. I know that, Kevin and Chris are going to be on the call. I know it's going to be a lot of fireworks coming tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And again, I think you're talking about just playmakers everywhere with Justin Thomas, Zaquan Bryan there at Benedictine, able to get outside, make some things happen from Gerner at quarterback. And then, as you said, Thomas Castellanos, we've been watching him almost as long as we have Gerner there at BC. He's a young man, and last year they both kind of went crazy in that football game. And I think now they're both seniors. Man, I don't, as we said, BJ, I don't know if you'll find a better quarterback matchup than what you have tonight with those two guys and doing it in different ways than what you've got tonight there at Memorial Stadium.
And these games are special. These matchups are special. These moments are special. So really excited about tonight. And yes, not only, do you have all the high school football fans in the area paying attention, all the, folks who follow recruiting, they want to see what Gerner does. They want to say, see the big throws. I know Kevin, he had a couple of last couple of weeks has had some really nice throws, I believe, to Justin Thomas, some touchdown throws, and then Castellanos can do it a couple of different ways. So from a recruiting standpoint, storylines, from state championship contenders with both teams, their storylines. So this is about as good as it gets. Really looking forward to what you and Christian and PJ have to offer later this evening.
And again, beautiful football weather tonight as well. I think it's supposed to be down in like the mid to lower 70s for most of the game. This is finally football weather here along the coast. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Big men don't like to sweat up there in the press box, Ben. So it should be a good one tonight. We'll have coverage starting at 7 p.m. Hope to have you tuning in for that one there from Memorial Stadium, BC and Ware County. Much more to come here in hour number 2. We'll take 3 when we return. We'll look at the weekend slate of SEC games as well. Here it's 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live at ESPN Coastal. Welcome back, hour 2 here, 3 and Out. All across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, we'll get to the SEC. Look ahead to this weekend, some big games in league, and certainly a setup for next weekend, potentially, depending on how some of these games play themselves out. So we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. Oh, I'm waiting. Cam's telling me to wait so we can get the take 3 music. I'm sorry, Cam. I did not get your signal there from the side. I will continue to stall as best I can. Are we ready to go? Let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. Here we go. All right, take 1, fellas. What is the most historic football stadium in America? A lot of iconic ones out there. What do you consider the Palace?
Yeah, Kevin, thinking about this, after you and I had a discussion, I think it is probably the Rose Bowl for me. And I know there are some professional football stadiums. To me, college football stadiums kind of lean a little bit more in favor of the tradition and history aspect. And I know the Rose Bowl not only has been home to UCLA and countless massive college football games, national championships, but also Super Bowls as well. So, I think, and concerts and, all kinds. So I think the Rose Bowl is probably one that stands out to me. And in college football, even going back to when you had the national championship game and the Rose Bowl was a separate game, and when that occurs now, it seems like there's still a special appeal and intrigue and sort of just reverence around the Rose Bowl and around the history and around, everything that has happened in that stadium, in that venue. So for me, I'm going to go with the Rose Bowl.
Wow, I mean, you think about historic stadiums or the greatest stadiums. I mean, only 2 really jump out. I mean, that's Lambeau Field and Soldier Field. I mean, Lambeau Field. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you go back to the old black and white films, you're talking about those first, Super Bowl 1s, 2s, and 3s. It's gonna be somewhere in Lambeau. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, BJ, I know you're gonna fact check me. I think that Soldier Field is the oldest of all the fields, if I'm not mistaken. So number 1, Lambeau because of the prestige, and I just think Soldier Field, man. Soldier Field is the equivalent to Madison Square Garden in the NBA. You go out there and do it on Soldier Field, man. Things just matter more. So give me Lambeau, 1A, and give me Soldier Field 1B.
Yeah, it's Lambeau Field to be the just iconic football stadium in the National Football League. Rose Bowl would be right here, certainly number 2. So many great football games been held there as well. Moving along, take 2 point. Christian was on a mission today to every once in a while he just gets a bug up his backside. He's like, look, I'm on a mission to tear. He hates turf. And after seeing Christian McCaffrey and J.C. Horn go down with non-contact injuries last night, he wants to know, should NFL teams be allowed to use turf and not just have the natural grass? NFLPA saying 69% more likely you get a foot or ankle injury on turf compared to just regular grass.
Yeah, my first thought when we were discussing this was maybe the teams in the north, when you talk about snow and you talk about ice and all that, during the winter, this is what they have to do. But Kevin, you were giving me some information. Ben, you're talking about Soldier Field, which is very cold and very frigid, has grass, and it has, I believe, since the late 1980s. So for a generation now, it has had grass. And I believe, Ben, you were telling me you've played on multiple fields in cold weather that have had grass. So maybe you have to get a different type of grass. I know they do something unique out in Arizona, but I think this is, I think Christian's spot on, especially when you look at the NFLPA data, which he sent me. When you see that there's a 60% increase in injuries, and there are ways to have grass pretty much anywhere with some of the different types of grasses and, storage and things that you can do resodding. I mean, it seems pretty obvious. And Ben, you were telling me overwhelmingly players want to play on grass because I guess the turf kind of clings to you, right? You get stuck in it, I guess, or there are more ligament or injuries or twists. So if this is something that you don't have to do because of the weather, and this is something that the NFLPA has data and various organizations have data that show that knee injuries, certain injuries are more likely, and this is something that the players very much want. I mean, I think it makes sense. Absolutely.
Should it be allowed to? Yes. But should they do it? No. Because the whole thing is, take the premise for a second. Okay, So you got all this money for a new stadium, and I get it. It's all about the fan experience. It's all about, all the amenities. It's all about everything you can put in one stadium. I would think that the number one priority would be the turf, where the players play. You should make sure that what is going to give us the best opportunity to make sure these players walk on the field. Walk off the field the same way we walk on. I've played on turf. Now, you go back to those St. Louis Rams teams, with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and Marshall Faulk, the greatest show on turf. You are moving at a different pace, but football is played on grass. It is played on grass. And you would think that a 69%, almost 70% increase in injuries on turf compared to grass will make the NFL think more about it. But this is what I said, and I'm before the show, I'm gonna say it now. It has to be a player of significance, aka a face of the league, to get them to think about it. If it was Patrick Mahomes, if it was Russell Wilson, if it was Aaron Rodgers, if it was Tom Brady, they would take a bigger look at it. But as long as these stars, who everybody are paying to see, are not injured, they don't mind it. Because when Tom Brady was out for the whole season because he had a torn ACL, can't hit the quarterback low. When Peyton Manning was out because of nerve damage in his neck, can't hit the quarterback high. Two other quote faces of the NFL. Well, one of them still one of the faces of the NFL. But I've never liked turf. Football is played on grass, period. And I just think that the fact that guys are having non-contact injuries is showing you that I have a surface that is not built or essential for my ligaments. It's not built for it. It doesn't move. Grass moves with your foot. It'll move. It'll give. If there's nothing but a hard surface painted green, that's not gonna give. And you know what else that is? That's lazy. I'm sorry, man. If you're gonna put all this money in a budget, that would be like having a real nice car and no floorboard. Nah, man, don't worry about the floorboard, man. That's fine. No, that's my foundation. So I'll never understand it. But then again, that's why I work downstairs and decisions are made upstairs. That's why guys keep getting hurt.
There you have it. Ben Troop, real grass. And don't be all. I think it's right. No, real grass is better 100% of the time if you can do it, and that's how it should be played. Especially because fake grass doesn't get all muddy and slippery, and that's how, that's some of the best things you see when you watch football is dudes so nasty you can't even read the number on the jersey because they're just covered, back in the day. Don't get that anymore. Now you just get torn shoulders and sleeves.
Torn.
On my uniform tore. Oh, please, come on. Get out of here with that. Moving on, take three. Speaking of that kind of same thing, Christian is just on a mission of everything he hates today. Hates artificial turf, and apparently hates Thursday night football games. He says, take three, should there even be Thursday night football games?
Yeah, I guess I'm taking the other opinion with some of these this week because I like the neutral site college football games, and I like the Thursday night games, and we're talking about the NFL specifically here, right? Thursday night games. Yeah, I think it's a fun way to kind of get the weekend started early. And I'll say this, as a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, it's about our only chance of being on national television is on a Thursday night because we're not being on, we're not going to be in prime time on a Sunday night or a Monday night. Let's be real. But I think it's a chance for, new teams, new players to kind of be in that prime time window because for the most part, when you think about Sunday night and Monday night football, and I get it, you're talking about the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Cowboys and the Steelers and, the teams like that. You're not necessarily in the Bucks. Obviously, you're not getting to see everybody on a rotation on Sunday and Monday night football. So to be on Thursday night football, it's a little different. And then I have no idea what it's like from a preparation standpoint or how it affects, the actual players and coaches. But from a fan standpoint, to be able to feel like you've kind of made it to the weekend on a Thursday evening, you got the college football, obviously, you got the pro football, and it's just one game. I like it. I think it's a good way to get things started, and it's a national spotlight to learn more about some other teams and other players.
Yeah, because when I was in the NFL, I didn't understand how prestigious Monday Night Football was. They didn't have Sunday Night football, like they're doing it now. But I don't mind Thursday night games because if I just play Sunday, there is no practice. It's all walkthroughs. You ain't going out there physically running around. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you can never ever practice the day before a game. So that means that Monday and Tuesday is all game plan. And then that Wednesday you got to fly to whatever city you got to if you are the away team. And another thing it does too, you get an extended weekend. So you're not gonna practice Friday. You're probably gonna come in Saturday and Sunday, probably watch the tape, And hopefully coach is saying, see you guys next Wednesday. The hardest thing to get in the NFL is days off. Because once the season is here, it's rough. I mean, it's every single week. It's preparation. You watch. You come in and you watch the tape on Monday, get a lift in. Tuesday, usually is your day off, and Wednesday you start preparing. So yeah, the Thursday night football, while it does stink, I say the reason why you do it because college teams have to do it. I mean, I don't know about you, Kevin and BJ, but the team that used to always play on Thursday night when I was in college was freaking USF. They had a contract, like they got to play on Thursday night. So yeah, I don't mind it. I do think it's a showcase game for teams that are more slot fillers than actual, big name teams. So yeah, and BJ, once again, you already know the first Thursday night game is already coming with the mustard jerseys and the Smurfs. It's gonna be Jacksonville, at Tennessee, and Trevor Lawrence gonna have 487 yards passing and 4 picks, and obviously Travis Henry gonna have 500 yards rushing.
Yeah, Kevin, I just want to clarify this for you, for people who think you like Thursday night college football. Kevin does not like Thursday night college football. He likes Wednesday evening action, and he likes old Friday lunchtime Big East football. That's what you were a fan of.
Yeah, 100%. I don't mind the Thursday night game. I hate Friday night college football. I think that stinks. Wednesday night I kind of don't get. But Thursday night college is good. Pros, I mean, Ben's right. It is the Jags and the Titans a lot on Thursday night.
Look, every one of the Jags games, the Jags either play in London or on Thursday every single game. Okay, so that's how it works. No, but App State got the big win last night.
Just so the NFL can save some money, it'll be the Jets versus the Giants. Like, nobody wants to see that. Nobody. And they'll do the color rush jersey. Let me tell you something about a color rush. A color rush jersey needs to have color in it. The Giants color rush jerseys are white. That's not a color rush. They look like the Buffalo Bills away jersey. So I'm just saying, give up for the color rushes. We will see. But yes, BJ, you already know, because they're not going to allow the Titans or Jacksonville to play on Thursday night because, well, everybody's watching. We will go with Thursday night for the Mustards and the Smurfs. Hey, congratulations.
It's all good. I look at Thursday night better than what the NFL is doing for the postseason. I'll let you talk about that real quick, Ben. Monday night playoff game. They're going to do a Saturday, Sunday, Monday night playoff. So you're playing 17 games, and then the NFL, obviously because of moolah and money, is going to say, hey, how about a short week in the playoffs? You get to play on Monday night. Winner gets a short week. Congratulations.
Bad enough that you take one preseason game away to only add a regular season game. And then when you do, and they add more playoff teams. So those that thought, how are they going to do it? We're going to have a Sunday, Monday. So that's going to be a wild card weekend. But it's the NFL, right? You finally make it in and you get to play on Monday night, get the hell beat out you and say, hey, man, that's what the playoffs feel like. Yep. You don't worry about next weekend because you're already out the playoffs.
But if you win, you got to turn around and play again. And again, the NFL, they are the marketing wizards. They have dubbed this Super Wild Card Weekend. Great job, NFL. Originality points plus 1,000 on that one. We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out, on this Friday. Great host of SEC games coming up this weekend. Of course, you've got Florida, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Missouri, Boston College, LSU, Mississippi State, kind of some of your more interesting matchups. Even Kentucky, South Carolina, kind of interesting there. We'll get to some of those. Let's start, though, with Texas A&M, Arkansas. That is a top almost 15 matchup. Arkansas at number 16, Texas A&M at 7. Interesting note from our own Matt Smith here, who has all kind of weird factoids that he throws out there. Arkansas has not been 1-0 in the SEC since 2010. So it's been a decade since they've been 1-0 to start SEC play. Can they pull it off tomorrow?
They're good enough to, and I think that's what college football needs to realize, is that Arkansas is not just a team that got off to a good start or a team that had a good game against Texas and got caught up in the atmosphere. They are a top 20, top 15 type team. And Texas A&M, I think, is well aware of that. I think this is going to be a competitive game. Arkansas has some of the best players in the SEC. We've talked about them. Treylon Burks at wide receiver, Bumper Pool, Grant Morgan at linebacker, Jalen Catalon at safety. You have Hudson Henry playing linebacker as well. Hunter Henry's brother playing linebacker for Arkansas. KJ Jefferson has done a really nice job. And you go back to the Sam Pittman hire, right? And a lot of people were kind of perplexed. Okay, why didn't they get a guy that had coaching experience? But there were a number of media people who were very quietly saying, this is a really good hire. Sam Pittman loves Arkansas. He knows the SEC. He's coached at Arkansas. He focuses at the line of scrimmage, and he's a great recruiter. And sooner rather than later, we've seen that come to fruition. Now, A&M might feel like they're not quite getting the respect they deserve. This is a team that was 5th in the country last year. They've won every game. They lead the nation in scoring defense, and they just shut out New Mexico. So I think both of these teams, Arkansas and Texas A&M, are looking around going, hey, you guys aren't talking about us enough, and the winner will certainly have that problem fixed.
What I like the most about Sam Pittman is the fact that, the hardest thing to do for any new head coach is to get these guys to buy in. I understand he is taking on the traditions, good or bad, of Arkansas, and as of late, they hadn't been that good of a team. But the one thing he did is not being talked about enough, BJ, last year in 2020. Got a guy, Felipe Franks, to come over from Florida and be like, look, man, help me kind of right the ship. Do for me what you did for Dan Mullen, to kind of welcome him back or welcome him into the SEC as a head coach. Kind of, and I think he did it. You fast forward to this year. It's easy to talk about what Arkansas did after they beat Texas, right? What were the storylines before? Yeah, man, this might be one. Sarkisian was like, hey, man, we get to go and kind of welcome them. Nope. Arkansas said, we've been here. You hoping to be here in the next couple of years. That's what makes Arkansas a really, really dangerous team. BJ, you talk about a guy in KJ Jefferson who's very, very balanced. Is going to keep you ahead of the chain. You're talking about Treylon Burks. He might be the best receiver in the SEC. And Jalen Catalon, he might be the best safety. So you got two guys that might be the best at their respective positions on your team. Texas A&M has a real good defense, and they had to replace Haynes King. They're replacing Kellen Mond, and I know that Jimbo Fisher signed a big-time extension in the offseason, and you still might catch that L on Saturday, because I think what happens is Arkansas is always scratching and clawing for respectability, and Texas A&M might be in the way. So it should be a better game than we give it credit for, but if Arkansas is still in the game, BJ, in the fourth quarter, that's not something that Texas A&M is bargaining for, because, like I said, they're really, really battles on offense, and when Treylon Burks get the ball in his hands, look out. That young man do not need a lot of opportunities to get in the zone.
Again, going to be a fun one there as well. I think one that's, as I say, unfortunate, because you get the Florida-Tennessee, which is a big rivalry game at 7 o'clock. Also at 7 o'clock, though, you get Kentucky and South Carolina. Kentucky 3-0, South Carolina 2-1 with their lone loss coming to Georgia. Obviously, most people expected that. But this is quite an interesting early season matchup for Kentucky and South Carolina here to kind of, again, continue to redefine the middle of the SEC East if you can get it done.
And I don't think we're talking about Kentucky enough either. Now, I will say this, because I know a lot of people last Saturday looked at Kentucky and went, that was not great. And it wasn't. Okay, if you go back to the midway point of the fourth quarter, Kentucky was losing to Chattanooga out of the FCS, out of the Southern Conference, and Chattanooga was at Kentucky's 5-yard line. So you're thinking they're about to score and put this game away, and Kentucky's going to lose to an FCS team. And what happened? They got a 95-yard pick six and then added another touchdown late and were able to win 28-23. in the past, Kentucky would have lost that game. And look, Ben, you've talked about this time and time again. You see the FCS and the FBS games be closer than ever before. And are there Georgia fans listening going, yep, remember Nicholls State? Okay, remember Georgia Southern? So you see these games, Georgia Tech, Florida, I mean, everywhere. So this happens. But Kentucky found a way to win. And they're 3-0. And there's something interesting to note about Kentucky. These guys have one of the most balanced offenses in the country. Chris Rodriguez is currently the leading rusher in the SEC. Nobody has more rushing yards than Chris Rodriguez. And you're talking about a guy that is averaging 6.4 yards per carry, has 378 yards already. Okay, well, that's nothing new at Kentucky. Had Benny Snell a couple of years ago. They have the SEC's second leading receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson, who transferred in from Nebraska. He's averaging 18.7 yards per catch and over 112 yards per game. And we know about Will Levis and what he's doing, one of the most proficient quarterbacks in the SEC. So not only is Kentucky good defensively, not only is Kentucky running the football with a superstar at running back in Chris Rodriguez, they have one of the country's best wide receivers. So keep an eye on Kentucky. They've won 6 of 7 in this series. And guys, if you're talking about a win here, 4-0, all of a sudden Kentucky, Florida, that becomes a national game.
I think Kentucky and Florida are going to be a national game no matter what. When you talk about the long tradition, regardless of what, even if Florida has had their way, BJ. But I think what makes Kentucky dangerous is they finally found a pass game. Like that, they've been talking about the pass game at Kentucky, since Jerry Lorenzo. May he rest in peace. And Chris Rodriguez, he provides balance. See, 3 things that you usually get with Kentucky. They've added another. You usually get a good defense, a great offensive line, and a great run game. Now you got a passing game to go along with it. I understand that South Carolina is a team that's always, trying to figure out, they're still trying to find their identity. But if Will Levis can keep things going, and him and Mr. Robinson got a great thing going right now, and Chris Rodriguez seems to be following in that Benny Snell-type footsteps, this could be a better game than people give it credit for, because like I said, South Carolina's going to do all they can to scratch and claw, but Kentucky just seems to be a team, just like Sam Pitt with Arkansas. We don't talk enough about Coach Stoops and what he's doing in Kentucky. Nobody expects Kentucky to win the East. But Kentucky expects to be very, very competitive. And Coach Stoops, he's got those guys winning 6 or 7 games regularly now. And that Kentucky-South Carolina rivalry is a lot better than people give it credit for.
Yeah, he's got Kentucky believing they can go out there and get it done. I think that's a very underrated one at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Quickly, LSU, Mississippi State. This was an upset a year ago. This is a high noon kick in Stark Vegas. Can Mike Leach do it again?
I wouldn't be surprised by anything here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if LSU comes in and wins by 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes the distance, and a couple of Mississippi State games have. You think about the opener with Louisiana Tech. You think about the game with with the wrong call against Memphis. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 3-point game late. I wouldn't be surprised if Mississippi State just, is hot early and maintains a multi-score lead throughout. Both of these teams are hard to predict, right, Ben? It's like whenever you get a feel for LSU and you think, okay, they're back. Well, they go to UCLA and they lose. You think about Mississippi State and you say, all right, Mississippi State is legit. They lose to Memphis. Then you forget about them and they come back and they have a big win. So much like I think Florida State, Louisville in the ACC is one of these games where it's like, I don't know. I don't have a good feel. That's kind of the sense I'm getting for this game in the SEC.
Max Johnson has not been the guy we thought he was going to be coming into this season. I know we thought it was going to be a quarterback battle between him and Miles Brennan. Obviously, Miles Brennan getting hurt forced Max Johnson to be the number 1 guy. Hasn't really been the guy we thought he was going to be. It's different when you got to earn it compared to when it's given to you. But Mr. Will Rogers, we know one thing they're going to do on Saturday. They're going to throw the ball a lot, a whole lot, and even more. If Derek Stingley, what he had, I still believe he's the best cornerback in the country, BJ and Kevin, but he's going to get tested this weekend because the thing about Mike Leach, he is very, very arrogant. He's going to win his way and he's going to lose his way. So if LSU's defense can't step up this week, Mike Jones, Ojulari, little brother, I know he plays outside linebacker for LSU. I think this could be a better game than people are saying, but I think that I still would go with Mississippi State only because this isn't an LSU team. This LSU team is so much different than what we've seen in 2019. They're going through an identity crisis right now too, because what are they on offense? What are they trying to run on defense? If Mississippi State find themselves, double-digit lead going into the 4th, dare I say, Mike Leach on his resume can say, "Hey man, I beat LSU 2 years in a row."
Yeah, interesting ball game there between those two teams coming up there in Starkville. That is the high noon kick, or I guess 11 a.m. there in Starkville when they all get it said and done. But it's always going to be another full Saturday of college football. How would we plan it out for you? We did it last week. We're going to do it again this week. We'll lay out your viewing guide for you next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Hey, we did this last week. I had a lot of fun with it, but we are planning your Saturday for you. All right, that's what we're going to do. You get up, you got breakfast, you got a few minutes to get honey-do list done, and then we got the rest of your day set. You could say, honey, I love you. Or maybe if you're the wife, your husband's not, honey, I want to watch football. Kevin, BJ, and Ben said, this is what I need to do from noon to midnight. 100%. I agree with that. We will go with the multiple screen option. That seemed to work great. I know not everybody does that, but we will at least provide a 2-screen option here in our scenario as we map out your Saturday. So, BJ, start us off. Early games, what we got to lock into?
Well, I call this my Kevin Thomas special, and this Saturday, and you will notice a theme to my games throughout the day that I think you will appreciate, given some of our conversations about do we like or dislike neutral site games. But for me, I'm going to start out noon, and we've talked about Soldier Field a couple of times on the show. Notre Dame and Wisconsin. That's a really good game. That's a great game at noon. Notre Dame has not necessarily looked like a top 15 team, but if they win here, that corrects a lot of things. Wisconsin is always quietly very good, so national implications on the line. I like the fact that it's in a unique venue, one of the great venues in the country. So I'm going noon, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, a nationally ranked matchup.
Noon for me, BJ, would be the same. I think that anytime Notre Dame is on primetime television in a neutral site game, I mean, you want to look at it for 2 reasons. 1, because you can't stand them, and 2, because you hate them even more than that, because they are the evil empire of college football. They are the biggest brand. But I just like the fact too that Soldier Field, which I talked about it again. When you look at how prestigious it is, I just want to be watching them win Wisconsin, find a way to get that dub against the Notre Dame guys in a historic stadium like that. So yes, BJ and Kevin on the big screen. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Soldier Field, Brian Kelly, take that in.
Yeah, I think on the big screen, that's the choice. This is I'm saying, but this is a Saturday where there's not just a plethora. It's not like week 1 where you had like 10 or 12 just really like can't miss games. I think Notre Dame, Wisconsin on the big screen, but on my secondary option, you got to have it. I think you want to put that noon kick, LSU, Mississippi State off to the side. Watch how that one turns out. Don't have the third option. If I did, I might flip it over to Missouri, Boston College just to see how that one is going. But if I got 2 options, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, secondary option, LSU, Mississippi State, they're in the noon window. All right, BJ, how long you locked in there when you go into the next window?
Yeah, I'm good for the whole game. I want to check that out. As Ben said, Notre Dame's going to lose. It's going to be close. It's going to be late, and that's going to be fun. So then you go to 3:30. I'm going one TV. Got to keep it simple. I'm going to stay with a neutral site game, and I'm going to go down to Arlington, AT&T Stadium. Big game in the SEC West. A lot of fun. A rivalry that dates back to 1903. Texas A&M and Arkansas, longtime conference foes, and now conference foes that might be contenders. Who could be the top contender to Alabama in the SEC West? And as I mentioned earlier in the show, it's at AT&T Stadium, and Jerry Jones was a co-captain on the 1964 national championship team under Frank Broyles with Arkansas. So you have that backdrop. A lot of pressure on A&M to look like a top 10 team. If Arkansas wins, are they suddenly on the verge of being a top 10 team? That's where it's got to be at 3:30.
Right here is gonna be the smaller TV, maybe in your bedroom. Because listen, I mean, maybe I'm talking about me right now. You know, I might have been jumping up and down about Notre Dame losing. I ain't really got no horse in that fight, so I will go to Arlington, BJ, because this is the thing. Arkansas get to do the trifecta. They get to say, listen, you thought we were just good when we beat Texas, we finna beat the second biggest brand in the state of Texas. We finna take down Texas A&M. Forget Jimbo Fisher talking trash about them boys from Tuscaloosa. Oh, you don't think we play football in Arkansas? So yes, give me Sam Pittman versus Jimbo Fisher. You got them Razorbacks versus them Aggies. But it's gonna be in the room though. That way, if I do fall asleep, I'm already in the bed.
Ben's got to rest up for Florida, Tennessee. There at 3. No, listen, I think the 3:30 window this week, it's pretty simple. I still got the 2 TV option, but big TV is Texas A&M, Arkansas, and it's not even close. I mean, that is the one you don't flip. Small TV option, you go with where did I just had it right? Clemson, NC State, just to see if Clemson's going to get upset. You want to keep that on in the small window, but outside of that, Texas A&M, Arkansas is look at what this is up against. Rutgers, Michigan, Wyoming, UConn, Iowa State, Baylor, Memphis, UTSA, Louisville, Florida State, Illinois at Purdue, Kent State, Maryland. I mean, there's nothing remotely close to Arkansas, Texas A&M at that 3:30 window. Where are we going from there, BJ?
We're going to stick with technically a neutral site game. We are not doing Florida, Tennessee, because here's why. In our group chat every Saturday, I can't send any messages about Florida, Tennessee anyway, because Ben can't handle it. So if I can't talk about it, I'm not going to watch it. So I'm going to go with the game that I can talk about, and that's Georgia Tech, North Carolina. Now, is it in Atlanta? Yes. Is it right down the road from the Institute? Yes. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, though, it's a neutral site game. And I'm telling you, North Carolina better be ready for a game. Georgia Tech still developing offensively. I think they'll get back to running the ball more Saturday night. And that defense, that secondary led by Tariq Carpenter, former Long County star, they're good. They're good. And they had Clemson right there. So the night game, of course, I'm going to check in on Florida, Tennessee. But the night game, to stick with the neutral site games just for Kevin, I'm going Georgia Tech, North Carolina in the Benz.
BJ, there's only one thing worse than me having to agree with you is having to agree with you on the air, and I have to do it right now. Look, Jeff Collins needs a signature win. Jeff Collins, I think they beat Miami at Miami, I want to say a couple of years ago. Haven't really had a lot to ride home about. People talk about, coming off that emotional roller coaster of almost beating Clemson. Ain't gonna be no almost. You gonna take a home game away from me for me to drive down the street in Mercedes-Benz? Okay, well, UNC finna take that L. I'm going to be watching Georgia Tech, a team that was recruiting me that I was supposed to go to, by the way, and against them UNC boys. And BJ, I don't got to flip to the Florida-Tennessee game. You know why? Because my mother's disrespectful, and she will be texting me throughout the game, and I told her not to do it. But yes, Jeff Collins coming off that emotional roller coaster against them Clemson boys. Sam Howell, you will not get you will not get a benefit of the doubt. Give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs over and over and over again, and watch them DB shut down them receivers of UNC. Give me Georgia Tech, UNC, Mercedes-Benz down.
If we continue doing this throughout the season, I'm very interested to see if we get to this segment, if Ben ever says, yes, watch the Gator game on my TV.
Yes, I will watch the Gator game.
I don't know.
I will say no. I'm sorry. I will be watching the Gator game. No, I'll be listening to it. The Ware County Gators, by the way, against the Benedictine Cadets. So I will be listening to that.
No. Tell America what you do, because this is what you do. Kevin, he'll watch it on his TV, but it'll be the YouTube recap after the game, the condensed game, the fast game.
This is what happens. So this is what happens. Yeah. So the game is over. I kind of go on my and I can't even go to the ESPN app because I follow Florida, so it'll pop up no matter what. So I'm like, I look at, okay, they won. Now, once I see they won, I can go to YouTube to where they take the condensed version about 15 minutes, and I break it down. Then I can't be on Twitter either. Think about that. Can't be on Twitter because they will literally give you play-by-play. So can't watch it, won't watch it. But listen, but my ACC team is Georgia Tech. So I can watch Georgia Tech. I almost went to Georgia Tech. I could have been.
Is that how it works? You get an SEC team and an ACC team. Who's my SEC team?
He's been hanging out with Cody Queen too long. I think.
Listen.
Just have teams everywhere.
Listen. At the end of the day, I do not have a Georgia Tech jersey underneath a Florida jersey. No, I'm just. I don't do stuff like. I don't.
Listen. My Pac-12 team, Oregon, looks really good. Yeah. We are going to make the playoff.
No, BJ. We talk about what. Listen, BJ. We've gone through every school in the ACC that you would have played for at this point as a slot receiver / kick returner, punt returner. Pretty soon you're going to be the kicker.
I will say the late window, the 7:30 games, you might have to get a third TV. I will put main TV, probably Kentucky, South Carolina, because of what it means. Their secondary TV, I'll be watching North Carolina, Georgia Tech, and I'll get a third option, maybe to get the laptop out and watch Florida and Tennessee. And if any of those gets out of control, this is a good Saturday to take the wife out to a late dinner, maybe some late cocktails, because that late window is, just go out and have a good time.
Whoa. Ben, you see how he rolls first? He's got 3 TVs. He's got 3 screens. Then he's going out for cocktails. Kevin, you can have whatever you like.
Kevin goes, listen, he's going to the midget saying, would you let go get some cocktails? Like,
it's maybe Oklahoma, West Virginia's at the same time. So once you get into, if the games start getting non-interesting, I'm not saying maybe really late, but you get 9 o'clock, maybe, because you've been watching football all day, you and the wife go out and have a date night or something.
Kevin, you can have whatever you like, Thomas.
I told you. I'm just saying. But what Kevin didn't tell you is that he done rented out the whole restaurant. I don't want to be in here with them. Where's everybody at? I just rented it out for the night. I just rented out Mr. Thomas, what would you be having?
I read out like a
Everything.
Jack in the Box, the real tiny ones. We got more to go. That's our game watching guide, though. We got you from noon to about 10 o'clock, and then you're on your own if you want to stay up to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and make sure you get that late night cover for your Saturday. We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We'll hear from Fred Gibson coming up in the final hour of the program, former Ware County Gator and Georgia Bulldog wide receiver. I look forward to chatting Georgia football with him. Coming up, we'll have our picks in the final hour as well. But kind of an interesting situation coming up tonight. BJ and Ben, Braves out on the West Coast in San Diego. First pitch of the game that I guess kind of counts as San Diego's home game. Going to start at 10:10 tonight. But at 8 o'clock, you have the resumption of an Atlanta home game in San Diego. So it'll be the bottom of the fifth with the Braves batting when it was called. Here's what's interesting. When that was called, Adam Duvall and Jorge Soler were not even on the team. They will be eligible to bat in this game. Ire Adrianza, who had pinch hit in the real game back in Atlanta, is not eligible to play because he has already played in this game, even though Duvall and Jorge Soler weren't even on the team. They can come in and pinch hit as well. And I believe Jesse Chavez was pitching when they called it. He can start, although the Braves may not have him put in. He's the pitcher of record. So all kind of weird stuff happening just to be able to play like 2 innings.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Because you're only going 7. Yeah, that's really interesting. And through it all the math, all the who can't play, just win, because you're down to a 2-game lead. And then once you get past San Diego this weekend, and we'll see how that goes, you're talking about Philadelphia to open next week, and then New York, and it's done. So the magic number is what, 8? Somewhere around there, a combination of Braves wins or Phillies losses. So it's coming down to it. I mean, it's coming down to that final series is going to be critical, but it would be just a beautiful thing if you could enter the series that starts next week up 4 games or 5 games, so that even if you get swept, it would still take more losses and Philadelphia finishing strong for you to not win the division. You're not going to make the wild card. So this is it. This is it. You got to win. Tough going to San Diego to face the Padres. You should have had the sweep yesterday. That was disappointing. Got to win this series this weekend. Got to win.
The Phillies were losing 5-0 to the Pirates, and the Pirates went Pirates on it and blew it. So you could have had a chance there, but a weaker opponent for Philadelphia. And as BJ said, got to win against San Diego to not let the Phillies potentially come to Atlanta next week with it all being on the line.
I really, really hope it doesn't come down to that. And Kevin, all that you was just mentioning earlier, I mean, who can play, who can't play? No, you were already on the team and you had a bat, so you can't play Soler and Duvall. You guys can't come in and play. It sounds like math to me. And when I signed my contract here, we said we don't do math on this show. The magic number, BJ, you said is 8, hopefully, you know, between the Phillies losses and Braves wins. But I'm just proud of the Braves for putting themselves in this position. I know we've been saying, BJ, I was surprised you to say it. This might be the most important game of the Braves series starting tonight before you even get to the Philly series. But hey, man, that's where we are. And hey, hopefully the Braves can keep to their winning ways and control what they can control, which is the team they play.
The magic number is 9, but you talk about what could potentially happen tonight. It's a 2-game lead, BJ. If you win tonight, both games, and the Pirates manage to beat the Phillies, it goes from 2 to 3.5. If the Phillies win and you lose both of these games, it shrinks all the way down to a half game going into Saturday really quick. So you think, oh, man, it's just a 2-inning makeup of a doubleheader that got rained out. No, that's 2 innings with Jorge Soler and Adam Duvall potentially, who weren't even on the team when this game was played, could be the difference in how this season potentially shapes out.
A lot of pressure, and it's strange. I mean, like you said, through it all, this is an Atlanta Braves home game, literally about the furthest away from Atlanta you can be in the continental United States. So it is, it's unique. It's what you got to do, but you got to win these games. I mean, I think you have a couple of innings. You have 6 outs to get a run. I mean, Kevin, what kind of night could we have in San Diego if the Braves get 1 run, it goes into extras, and then the 10 o'clock game doesn't start till 11:30? I mean, you talk about staying up for the late game on a college football Saturday night. Could you stay up through all that?
Me personally, I don't know if I could, but yeah, I thought about that same thing as well. It's like, what if the Braves tie this thing and then you end up burning a bunch of pitching in that? Things could get very interesting, because I think if you're the Braves, you're looking at it a couple of ways. With this, either we want to win it, let's go ahead and get 2 runs and finish it, or you probably, it sounds bad, lose it. So seriously, BJ, because if you lose it, then it's over. Then you have your 9-inning game to play. I don't think you want to mess up your bullpen going into the weekend, burning through all your pitchers, right? I mean, it's like, hey, we're in a 2-inning game. We end up using 6 dudes, and now we got to go play a 9-inning game after that, and it potentially messes you up for the weekend. So I think best case scenario, you come out and drop a couple of runs on the board and get it done. Appreciate you joining us here in hour number 2. We still got more to come. We got our picks sure to go wrong. We'll hear from Fred Gibson coming up in the final hour of the program as well. Former Ware County Gator and Georgia Bulldog. Georgia going to Nashville this weekend to take on Vanderbilt. So don't go anywhere. More to come here. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network and ESPNCoastal.com.